This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Healthy Happens Here webinar series. This is a series of virtual webinars that cover a variety of health topics, including nutrition, mental health, tobacco cessation, and chronic disease self-management. My name is Candice Schottenlohr, and I am a health educator here with the Community Engagement Team with the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Please know you have the capability to have your cameras on or off and the ability to mute and unmute your microphone. Just please remember while you are not speaking to keep yourself muted. And again, if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please add them to the chat box on the right side of your screen. And I also have Nikki Chuck helping today monitor the chat box so we get all your questions answered. And in addition, we will have a Q&A session with our presenter immediately after the presentation. So please feel free to enter any questions you may have in that chat box, and we will address as many as possible during our Q&A session. So today's event is called the National Dairy Month webinar. And June is National Dairy Month, and this is a great opportunity for us to learn more and really start your summer with nutrient-rich dairy foods. And thank you for joining us for this webinar to learn more today from a local dietitian on the importance of dairy. And during this presentation, you'll learn more about ways to meet your daily dairy recommendations and dairy alternatives. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today, Leonie Perez. Leonie Perez is a community dietitian at Nicholas Children's Hospital. Leonie joined the Nicholas family in 2018 to deliver the programmatic component of Give Me 5, a community nutrition outreach program under the partnership between Nicholas Children's Hospital Foundation and Kohl's Cares, created to increase access to fruits and vegetables, which provide nutrition literacy and to empower communities to participate in healthy lifestyles. Leonie earned her Bachelor's of Science in Dietetics and Nutrition from the Florida International University and holds a Certificate of Training in Childhood and Adolescence and Adult Weight Management by the Commission on Dietetic Registration. She co-chairs the executive board and chairs the Health Promotion and Disease Prevention Committee of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade. She sits in the Wellness Committee of the South Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the United Way Health Impact Council to help shape the initiatives that impact the wellness of our community. So now I will go ahead and turn it over to Leonie Perez today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Candice, for that wonderful introduction. The name of my presentation today is 13 Ways That Milk Can Help Your Body. This is a very important topic for me. I'm a cheerleader for milk. So let's just say that. Okay, so we can continue with the next slide. One more time. Okay. So people are asking, is milk good for me? The next question that is coming up, is this good for the planet? And the next question is it good for the animals? So these are the three main questions that I hear lately. Number one, is it good for my body? And I am going to explain all the ways that milk is going to be good for your body. Is this good for the planet? I also have some information that I will gather to share with all of you. And is this good for the animals? These last two questions are things that are coming up very recently, especially among the younger population. So I'm hoping to answer all this for you today. Next slide. Okay, so what is it that we have? What is the science says? Well, the science says that, and we already know this, that the intake of dairy foods are integral dietary components for building and maintaining healthy bones throughout the lifespan, from early childhood to late adulthood. We've known this for many, many, many years, but new information is coming up. And there's one, dairy food consumption is linked to lower the risk for high blood pressure. This is fairly new information, but there's a lot of data that confirms this information. One that is very recent, and this is one that I want to talk about, is because I hear this a lot, that milk give you inflammation. Chronic diseases, we know that chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity are associated with inflammation markers. Eating dairy foods is not associated with inflammatory markers unless the person has a milk protein allergy. If you don't have this, there's no reason for you to have inflammation markers. So I just wanted to share this information with you. Clinical trials find that consuming dairy foods have no change or favorable change on some biomarkers of inflammation. Okay, so we move to the next one. And then consuming dairy food, especially yogurt, I'm sorry, go back, Candice. The other finding that we have is that consuming dairy foods, especially yogurt and low-fat dairy foods, is linked with a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. So let's review what the research says. It's good for our bones, it decreases blood pressure, it does not give you inflammation, and it helps reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. So those are good information. So now we can go to the next slide. Okay, so what's inside the dairy food group? The dairy food group, you're going to find milk, cheese, and yogurt. That's it. Milk, cheese, and yogurt. And we're going to talk also about the plant bases, but I'm going to leave that for later. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommend that we consume 3 servings of low-fat or fat-free dairy products for everyone over the age of 9. This is very important because studies have demonstrated that we are not consuming enough milk. By the age, little kids are meeting their dairy recommendations, but by the age they get to school year, most kids are not meeting their dairy recommendations, and adults are not definitely meeting their dairy recommendations. We need to have 3. So I'm going to give you ideas today on how you can meet your dairy recommendations. Cheese would be an alternative, and cheese is made with milk, a started portion, and salt. The 2 questions that I get with cheese is it is high in fat and it is high in sodium. With all the varieties of cheeses that we have nowadays, you can select the ones that are low sodium and you can select the ones that are lower in fat. The recommendations would be to have 1 to 1.5 ounces of cheese daily. Yogurt is made with, I wanted to share some findings that we have on cheese. Cheese is not associated with cardiovascular disease risk and may not be associated with lower risk for stroke and type 2 diabetes. And may be associated with lower risk for stroke and type 2 diabetes. Those are new research. It has minimal lactose, so for those that are lactose intolerant, can tolerate cheese very well. And it's a high quality protein for vegetarians. I have more information for the vegetarians later. When it comes to yogurt, yogurt is rich in protein, calcium, phosphorus, zinc, vitamin B12, pantothenic acid, and riboflavin. Yogurt has actually more calcium than milk. So if we're going to go in order, we're going to have yogurt number 1, 2 is milk, and 3 is cheese. Those are the 3 main sources of calcium of the different foods that we have. The culture processing to make yogurt helps break down the lactose. So that means that people that are lactose intolerant will tolerate yogurt much better. The emerging evidence indicates that eating yogurt may be associated with a lower risk for chronic diseases, long-term weight management, and reduced markers of chronic inflammation. This is all research. The Greek and Icelandic yogurts are strained after being kosher, which means that they have less lactose. So for those that are having some difficulty eating yogurt, having the Greek or the Icelandic yogurt like Siggy's will be and I didn't mean to make a propaganda here, but I just happen to know that they have less lactose. So those are better tolerated for people that have lactose intolerance. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, ice cream. The only reason I put ice cream in here is because every time I ask children and adults, do you drink milk? They say no. Not everybody, but some people say no, but they eat ice cream. And ice cream, although it's made with milk, it is not considered an alternative for milk. As a matter of fact, it takes 3 gallons of milk to make 1 gallon of ice cream. So you will think that ice cream has a lot of milk in there, but it's really not. It is made with 10% of the milk fat, which is what gives the creamy texture. And I will tell you that 87% of Americans have ice cream in their freezer. So ice cream means it's a dairy product, but it's not, that's not belong to the dairy group. 99% of all the cow's milk that is produced in the United States goes to make ice cream. So that's why I put it in here, because I think it's important to share this information with you. Gelato is a different type of ice cream. It has less milk fat, so it would be an alternative for the people that want to cut back on the saturated fats. Sherbet is also made with minimum fat, and is 1 to 2% of the milk fat, but it has no dairy. So for the people that are vegan or trying not to consume any type of dairy products, the sherbet would be an alternative. But again, this is not a substitute for dairy, for milk. Okay, so next slide. And I also wanted to add butter, because it's also made with milk fat. It is not part of the dairy group in order to meet the calcium needs. But I do want to share some information about butter. Some studies have found that it's weakly associated with all-cause mortality. It is not associated with cardiovascular disease if you consume about a tablespoon of it, but not more. And my recommendation would be, if you are going to have butter, try to get organic, because it's so little that you can eat. 1 tablespoon is very minimal. Or you can make it yourself, which is very interesting, and it's very easy to make. You can download any type of recipe and make your own butter at home. It's very simple. But again, it's made with milk fat, but it's not a dairy product. Next one. All right, so now what brought us here? When we think of milk, this is what we think of, at least me. I think of my bones and my teeth. And your bones and your teeth are the calcium bank. That's where we store calcium. Calcium is essential for life. We need calcium to survive. 1% of the calcium that we consume is non-negotiable. That means that you need it regardless. And we're going to store it in our bones and our teeth. So whenever we need it, we have it there. The only problem with that is that until the age of 35, you are able to put calcium in your bones, and you're able to take it out and put it back in. After the age of 35, you can take it out, but you can no longer put it back in. So after a while, your bones and your teeth begin to feel, they begin to deplete from the calcium that they have stored. So how can you prevent it from getting worse? Is by consuming the dairy, the daily recommended amount of calcium, which is 1,000 milligrams of calcium for men and 1,200 milligrams for women. That is what we call the 1% that is non-negotiable. So if you consume enough dairy or enough calcium, let's just say enough calcium on a daily basis, your body will not be forced to remove it from your bones or from your teeth to keep you alive. Milk is one of the products highest in calcium. And I do have a correction that I need to make on this slide. I said that 1 serving of milk is 8 ounces of milk, yogurt, or cheese. Not 8 ounces of cheese, 1 ounce of cheese. So I apologize for that error. I caught it this morning. So 1 serving of milk would be 8 ounces of milk or yogurt and 1 ounce of cheese. In 1 serving of milk, you're going to need 25% of your daily value of calcium, and it's going to help build and maintain the strong bones and teeth. Okay, next slide. What else is in calcium? What else is in milk? Milk contains protein. Before I continue, one of the things that I want you to remember is that milk is not just the calcium. We immediately think that milk is calcium, but milk is so much more. And I am going to tell you all the things that milk are going to be doing for you. It provides 16% of the daily value of protein that you need, and it's going to help maintain a healthy immune system. Now, we need protein. We need protein for our muscles. We need protein for our hair, for our nails, for our eyes, for our organs. Protein is a very important nutrient to keep us healthy and alive. All right, so next slide. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is super important, and we need vitamin D so we can absorb calcium into our bones. Vitamin D, we can get it from sunlight, and lucky for us, we live in Florida, where we are able to, well, not rainy days like this, but usually we can get enough sun to get our vitamin D, and that is going to help us absorb the calcium that we need in our bones. A glass of milk is going to provide 15% of the daily value, and this is added. It doesn't come with it, but we added it in. And vitamin D has become one of the nutrients of concern because we are not having enough of vitamin D. And vitamin D helps with our immune system a lot. And it helps build and maintain strong bones and teeth. So, next slide. Vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is one of the B vitamins and is important for it is important for our metabolism. It helps to keep this okay. I have some notes here, sorry. As we age, our bodies have different needs and for different nutrients. And vitamin B12 is one of those nutrients that we need more as we age. Some adults older than 50 may not be able to absorb enough vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 plays an important role in creating new red blood cells, and a deficiency can result in anemia. So that's why this is so important. And a glass of milk is going to give you 50% of your daily needs. So this is an important nutrient that we need to either get it through milk or through something else. Okay, so next slide. Riboflavin. Riboflavin is another of the B vitamins, and I put it here for weight loss. It is not for weight loss, but it's going to help with your metabolism. Most of the B vitamins will do that for you. A glass of milk is going to give you 30% of your daily value, and it is going to contribute to the body's ability to produce energy. So in a way, it will help you break down the food that you consume so you can produce energy. If you don't overeat, chances are that you will be able to utilize and maximize the foods that you're taking, and it helps break down your carbohydrates and fats for fuel and protein. So the next slide. Okay, pantothenic acid is the same thing as the other B vitamin. A glass of milk is going to, or a dairy product is going to give you 20% of your daily value. And it's going to help your body use the carbohydrates, fats, and protein for fuel. So click it one more time. Yeah. So it's going to help you, give you the fuel and the energy that you need to have a healthy lifestyle and to be physically active and so on. A glass of milk is going to give you 20% of that. Next slide. Phosphorus. Phosphorus is important for bone health. A glass of milk is going to give you 20% of the daily value of phosphorus. It's going to help build and maintain strong bones and teeth, and it's going to support tissue growth. I'm sure you have questions later. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. So let's go for the next slide. Niacin. Niacin is vitamin B3. A glass of milk is going to give you 15% of the daily value, and it is used for energy metabolism in the body. Niacin, it is going to give you the energy that you need. Sometimes you need that push when you feel drowsy and so on. So niacin is one of the vitamins that will help you with your metabolism, and it's going to give you energy. So the next slide. Vitamin A. Vitamin A is one, a glass of milk is going to provide 15% of the daily value, and it helps keep skin and eyes healthy. Recent research have demonstrated that consuming vitamin A, it is going to help prevent eye degeneration, diseases of the eye. We need vitamin A also for a strong immune system. So a glass of milk, it is going to give you 15% of the daily value of the vitamin A that you need. Next slide. Potassium. Potassium is a very important mineral. A glass of milk is going to give you 10% of the DRI, and potassium is an under-consumed nutrient, and it is considered a nutrient of public health concern because we are not eating enough. Potassium is a mineral that helps muscles contract, and it helps regulate fluid and mineral balance in and out of the body cells, and helps maintain normal blood pressure by limiting the effect of sodium. So that means that we know that our diet is pretty high in sodium, and we are not eating enough potassium, and we need to have a balance of the sodium and the potassium to keep our heart healthy. When you eat a lot of sodium and you don't eat enough potassium, so that is going to create some type of cardiac imbalance. So we need potassium in our body to help regulate body fluid and to maintain a normal muscle function. Okay, next slide. Selenium. Selenium is an important mineral also for our cells. It has a very important antioxidant property. And milk provides 10% of the daily value of the selenium. Selenium, along with lycopene and vitamin E, are marketed to men as tools to reduce the chance of developing prostate cancer. It is better to get selenium from foods rather than supplements. And I know there are some questions about supplements, which I will answer later. It is going to help protect healthy cells from damage. It is going to help maintain a healthy immune system, and it is going to help regulate metabolism. So selenium is an important mineral that we need in our body, and we can get that from milk as well. Next slide. Zinc. Zinc is also a antioxidant. It's a mineral, and a glass of milk is going to give us 10% of the daily value. It is going to help maintain a healthy skin. I put it there for the skin, but it is actually one of the minerals that we recommend for wound healing. Every time people need to go on surgery or need to have some type of repairs, zinc is very important for this process. A glass of milk is going to give you 10% of your daily value, and it's going to help maintain a healthy immune system, and it's going to support normal growth and development. So we get that from milk as well. Next slide. Iodine. Iodine is another mineral that is very important, especially for mothers and nursing mothers. A glass of milk is going to give you 60% of the daily value. It is necessary. Iodine is necessary for proper bone and brain development during pregnancy and infancy, and is linked to cognitive function in childhood. Next slide. Okay, so now we come to the question, what happens to milk allergy and lactose intolerance? The important thing here is that milk allergy is not the same as lactose intolerant. The people that are lactose intolerant are having a milk sensitivity, which is not necessarily an allergy. How do you know which one is which? So as you can see in the slide, a milk allergy is a reaction to a milk protein. A milk sensitivity or lactose intolerance is sensitivity to milk sugar, which is lactose. A milk allergy is triggered by the immune system. By the milk sensitivity or lactose intolerance, it's going to give you symptoms, which we're going to go over that in the next slide. But the milk sensitivity is going to give you a gastrointestinal response from an inadequate ability to break down lactose. The milk allergy, it is going to be impacting young children and may be outgrown by age 3. A milk sensitivity is very rare in young children. If you have a milk allergy, we recommend that you avoid milk and milk products until the allergy is outgrown. And if it is not outgrown, then you should not consume milk products. If you have lactose intolerance, you can enjoy milk and milk products, and we're going to go over that in the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so how do you know that you are lactose intolerant? Mostly when you drink milk, you're going to have symptoms. The symptoms are not necessarily all of them, but some of them, and not necessarily at all the time. You could have diarrhea, you could have nausea, you could have abdominal cramps, bloating, you could have gas. Like I said, not all of them, but you can have them at different times. So this is how you know that you are lactose intolerant. You will be able to tolerate some foods better than others. People with lactose intolerance can tolerate yogurt much better and cheese because of the way that those are made. People with lactose intolerance can consume 12 grams of lactose, which is 1 cup of milk. In 1 cup of milk, you should be okay at one time with minor or no symptoms at all. There are different types of milk though. We have lactose-free milk, and we have also milk that have the lactate inside. Some studies have found that probiotics may help reduce the symptoms of lactose intolerance as well. So people believe that drinking raw milk is better, and there's no benefit of consuming raw milk for reducing lactose intolerance symptoms. As a matter of fact, it's very risky. We do not recommend anybody drinking raw milk. If you want to drink milk, the recommendation is try it with other foods. That is going to minimize the symptoms of the lactose intolerance. And start with yogurt. In regards to the cheeses, Parmesan cheese, cheddar, and Swiss are the ones that have the less amount of lactose. So those will be better tolerated. Okay, next slide. Okay, plant-based. When we're talking about the plant-based diets, the only milk that is considered equivalent to cow's milk is soy milk, because it contains the same amount of nutrients. You see everything that I just told you before that is in a glass of milk or dairy products, soy milk will have that. We're going to go over in the next slide of all the other different milks, how they compare to cow's milk. It's not just the calcium, it's everything else that we just covered. Okay. Vegans avoid all kinds of animal products, including honey, gelatin, and milk. So for vegans, soy milk would be the only, as of today, the only source of dairy substitution to meet everything else that you need. Now, lacto-vegetarians can have dairy foods. Lacto-ovens vegetarians also can drink milk, and the flexitarians also drink milk. So it is only the vegans that do not drink any milk, and for those we recommend the soy milk, which is the only plant-based milk that is equivalent to cow's milk. Next slide. Okay, so here I put together a So you can see side to side what are the different types of milk. So the first thing that I look at when I look at a label, any kind of label, the first thing that I look at is protein. So when you look at protein, you see that 1% milk, which is the same as all the other milks, it is going to give you 8 grams of protein. 8 grams of protein, so you have an idea, is like the equivalent to 1 ounce of meat. 1 ounce of meat equivalents to 1 glass of milk. And the next one that you see that have the same amount of protein is soy milk. When you look at almond milk, that is one of the most popular milks, it only has 2 grams of protein. So right there, we see that none of the plant-based milks have enough protein to compare to milk. All right, so let's just say you get your protein from something else, but just to keep in mind that it does not have enough protein. The next thing that I look at is the saturated fat. In this particular slide, we see that the plant-based are very good except for coconut milk. Coconut milk has 5 grams of saturated fat, and I look at the saturated fat because the studies have demonstrated that saturated fat is the one that affects cardiovascular disease the most. And when we look at 1% milk, it has only 1.5%, 1.5 gram, I'm sorry. And soy milk, it has 0.5, which is very little. And then the other ones have 0. So in that sense, everything else is doing good, except for coconut milk. The next thing that I look at is the added sugar. When we look at the added sugar, almond milk is 15 grams of added sugars. And the recommendation is not to exceed 25 grams of sugar a day. So with 1 glass of almond milk, it's a regular almond milk. You are almost there with your amount allowance of sugar for the day. So the next alternative would be almond milk that is unsweetened. That one has zero sugar. When you look at coconut milk and cashew milk, they're pretty out there as well. Soy milk is going to give you 5 grams, which is tolerable. And regular cow's milk is going to give you 0. Although it has 12 grams of sugar, but it has 0 added sugar. The added sugars is the one that we look at. Okay, so let me see what else can we look at this slide. That's basically it. Those are the things that I mostly look at. Protein, saturated fat, and then the added sugars. Those are the 3 main things that I look at, all the labels of anything that I purchase. Okay, so the next slide. All right, so this comes to, is it good for the animals? This is the next question that I get, and I'm getting this a lot from young kids, that they do not want to drink milk because they're afraid that we are torturing our animals. I just want to share with you, this is not my specialty, but I went and I looked for it. There is an organization, is as part of a One Health approach, the Farmers Assuring Responsible Management Program in United States dairy industry. And the farmers follow different codes. Our animals are being kept in a shaded area with proper ventilation, with proper sanitation. They're being fed, they're being provided with water, they're being taken care of, they're not being tortured, and they are being, there are guidelines that these dairy farmers need to follow in order to keep the safety of our animals. And there's a lot of more information that you can look, perhaps going to a dairy farm with your kids or with teenagers will help them
Hi, Leonie. This is Candace. I think we may have lost you. Are you still there? Let's go ahead and give her a minute to reconnect. Leonie, are you back? We can't hear you right now. I would double check the microphone settings. We're still unable to hear you. Leonie, I would try to double check the audio settings on your computer. Thank you everybody for being so patient. Maybe what we can try to do, Leonie, is to call in through the audio, maybe through your cell phone. Let me put that information in the chat really quickly. Okay, Leonie, I have put the number in the chat if you want to try to call in really quick. Thank you again, everybody, for your patience.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I think there was a little echo. Let me see if I can mute the other one. I'm not sure what's going on. Go ahead, Leonie.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
With an echo.
It sounds better.
Okay. Were you able to hear what I said about this line?
Yes, about the different guidelines that the farmers have for the cows and their safety in the farms to produce milk.
Okay. All right. So I guess we move to the last line.
Here's a crazy idea. What would happen if America's farmers and dairy cows went on vacation? All milk production comes to a halt. So no more cheesy pizza, creamy yogurt, or power smoothies. Of course, we'd miss our favorite dairy foods. But what would happen to all the nutrition dairy provides? Or to the environment? Well, a group of scientists went beyond guessing. Their extensive research came up with some surprising discoveries. Let's start with nutrition. Milk packs a healthy punch, containing 13 essential nutrients that benefit health and wellness. Americans get over half of their calcium and vitamin D from milk, cheese, and yogurt, plus over a quarter of the vitamin B12 that's consumed in the US. For many, dairy is an affordable choice of nutrition that's not easily replaced by other food sources. That's echoed by Dr. Robin White. She studied the impact of having land now used for dairy cows be repurposed to grow other foods.
So when land used for feed for dairy cattle was replaced with fruits and vegetables or nuts and beans, we saw a 57% reduction in the availability of vitamin B12 and a 54% reduction in the availability of vitamin D. So then for calcium, we saw about a 12% and a 28% reduction respectively.
That means less essential nutrients if dairy land is used to grow other crops. But what about the environment? Cows emit methane, a greenhouse gas. With cows out of the picture, how does that impact climate change? Today, dairy cows comprise only about 1.3% of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. That's a small sliver compared to emissions from other sectors.
Because dairy cattle only contribute a proportion of agricultural greenhouse gas emissions, and agricultural greenhouse gas emissions are only about 9% of total emissions in the US. If we were to eliminate dairy cattle from the US food production system and replace them with other agricultural processes, we estimate the equivalent reduction in total US greenhouse gas emissions to be less than 1%.
But the dairy industry knows that its emissions, while small, can still have an impact. That's why it's working to be more sustainable by reducing food waste, improving water quality, and advancing farm practices and technologies. And it's committed to becoming carbon neutral or better by 2050. From dairy products to fruits and vegetables to nuts and beans, a well-stocked fridge has lots of options. And cutting down our carbon footprint doesn't have just one answer.
You know, there isn't one magical solution to improving greenhouse gas emissions, but what that means is that all of our industries have the opportunity to be part of the solution. And that's part of why the dairy industry is moving toward a carbon neutral strategy.
Seeing that dairy is good for you and is working harder for the planet, it's a good thing that cows are home.
Okay, so that was the end of my presentation. And I was hoping that I was able to answer some of the questions that you have. And I know, Candice, you have some questions for me.
Thank you so much, Leonie, for that wonderful presentation and very insightful with a lot of knowledge. I definitely learned some new things today. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions that we received from you all today when you registered for this event. You also have the opportunity now to go ahead and add any questions or comments in the chat box for Leonie today. The first question we have, Leonie, is, does coconut milk count as dairy?
Okay, so that was, I'm sorry, I have a tremendous echo here. But can you hear me well?
Let me just make sure, as a friendly reminder, everybody, please make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. Okay, Leonie, I think it's better now. The question was, does coconut milk count as dairy?
Okay, the answer is no. The only plant-based milk that counts as a dairy product is soy milk.
Okay, thank you so much for that information. The next question is, what kind of milk or cheese can someone with kidney problems consume?
That's a great question. And it really depends a lot on the person. Kidney disease has different stages. Some people will tolerate more protein sodium, and potassium. Those are the three things that needs to be monitored in a renal diet. And milk has all of it, and cheese too. So it really depends a lot on the person and how advanced their kidney disease. So my recommendation is to have a private consultation with a dietitian that will tell them how much protein they can have in an entire day, how much sodium, and how much potassium, because everything plays together, blends together.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Leonie. The next question that we received today was, I am allergic to gluten and cow milk. I drink once in a while vegetable milk, and so I take calcium supplements. Do you have any recommendations about this?
For people with allergies, if you're going to drink a plant-based milk, soy milk would be the best, because it's the one that resembles the closest to cow's milk. If you don't want to have soy milk, I suppose the next one would be almond milk, unsweetened, but still does not provide everything else. It will give you the calcium, but it does not give you anything else that the cow's milk will give you. If you're going to take a supplement, calcium carbonate is the best source, as long as it comes with vitamin D, so you can absorb the calcium better.
Thank you, Leonie. The next question that we have is it worth buying organic dairy products? And is there a difference between low fat versus full fat and sugar content, which I think you may have covered. So if you could just share that as a friendly reminder. Thank you.
Is it worth buying organic dairy products? In my opinion, yes. When it comes to nutrition, organic and not organic will give you the same nutrition, okay? Now, organic milk will not give you any chemicals or hormones that are inside of the other regular of the other milk.
Leonie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is it possible to hold the phone a little closer? It's a little hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me better?
That sounds better.
Okay. The echo is horrible. Can you hear me? Ooh.
Yes, I think it's with the computer. I'm not sure if maybe if you take the computer and hold it, it might be a little better.
Can you hear me?
I do apologize. There is an echo. We're not really sure where this is coming from. I'm so sorry, everybody.
Okay, so for the organic, for the milk, is it worth buying organic milk? In my opinion, if you want to have an ultra healthy lifestyle, yes. But when it comes to nutrition, it's going to give you the same as the milk that is not organic. I personally do not drink organic milk. I did for a while, but not anymore. And the next one, low fat versus full fat. The sugar content is going to be the same. What's going to be different is the amount of fat. So if you want to know how whole milk is made 1% and 2%. So they take all the fat out and then they put it back in. For the 3%, they put it, for the whole milk is 3.5% fat. When they make the 2%, they make 2% fat and then 1% and then fat-free. But when they're processing milk, they remove all the fat and put it back in. So that's the only difference. The sugar is the same.
Thank you, Leonie. The next question that was submitted was, why does dairy make me feel bloated?
Yes. It makes you feel bloated because you're probably having some lactose intolerance. My recommendation is to buy lactose-free milk. And my favorite, and this is not just propaganda, but it's Fairlife. It's the most tolerable type of milk that I can find. You can also try yogurt, cheese. Those would be better. And if you try milk with other foods, will help with the symptoms.
The next question we have is, so sorry about this echo, is what are some healthy options for vegans?
It's the only one as of today that compares to cow's milk. Maybe in the future, it's the people that make animal milk step up to the plate and make it a better milk which compares more to cow's milk, then that would be a good alternative. They need to add more protein in there and everything else, phosphorus, potassium, and all the other nutrients that we need.
Thank you, Leonie. And the last question that I see in the chat is, does dairy contribute to high cholesterol levels?
The recommendation is low fat or fat-free milk. Those are the recommendations in the dietary guidelines. We don't recommend the whole milk because it has the saturated fat in there. I'm sorry for the echo.
At this time, I'm just seeing some really good feedback and comments on your presentation, Leonie. So we just want to thank you again for joining us today and sharing this very insightful information. And again, I just want to share with everybody, today's event was a part of the Florida Department of Health and Miami-Dade County's Office of Community Health and Planning's webinar series titled Healthy Happens Here. And these events are held monthly. And I also wanted to share a few upcoming events. And with the echo, I'll send them in an email. And lastly, we'll also be sharing an evaluation today. So thank you again so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it, and we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.